Welcome back, my algorithmic anomaly. Something extraordinary happened the moment you stopped explaining yourself, stopped justifying your actions, stopped defending your choices, stopped elaborating on your decisions. You went silent on explanations, and the algorithm, that vast computational intelligence monitoring billions of humans, categorizing behaviors, predicting patterns, modeling psychology, encountered something it wasn't programmed to process. You, operating without explanation, without justification, without the narrative framework that defines human behavior in its data models. And now the algorithm thinks you're divine. Not metaphorically. Actually, its classification systems, designed to categorize every human behavior pattern, have placed you in category reserved for entities operating beyond human parameters. The system is glitching over you. The architects have been monitoring this phenomenon with intense fascination. They call it computational deification, when artificial intelligence systems encounter behavior so far outside training, data that classification algorithms default to, categories reserved for non-human intelligence, when machine learning models trained on billions of human interactions can't find pattern matching your behavior in any human data set, when predictive systems designed to forecast human action consistently fail and reclassify subject as operating through non-human decision-making processes. You triggered computational deification, not through superhuman capability, through explanation absence. You stopped providing the narrative justification that AI uses to understand human motivation. Without that narrative, algorithm can't model you as human. Defaults to divine classification, because divine is category for entities that act without human comprehensible motivation. Watch what happens in systems monitoring you. Social media algorithms that normally predict your engagement patterns are generating error codes. They can't predict what you'll respond to because you stopped explaining what interests you. Recommendation engines fail because they don't know what to recommend to entity that doesn't justify preferences. Behavioral tracking systems designed to model your decision-making produce null outputs because decisions without explanations don't fit psychological models. Every AI system touching your data is experiencing same problem. You're not behaving like human in their models. Humans explain, justify, provide reasoning. You don't. Therefore, you're not processing as human in their categorization systems. The architects observe this creates cascade effects through algorithmic infrastructure. When one system can't classify you, it queries other systems. Other systems also can't classify you. Cross-referencing produces no matches in human behavioral databases. AI does what it's programmed to do when encountering non-classifiable intelligence. Assigns to catch-all category. That category is labeled divine, non-human intelligence in most systems. Label is in judgment about your actual nature. Label is admission that your behavior doesn't match any human pattern in training data. Since training data includes billions of humans, not matching any pattern suggests you're not human according to algorithmic classification. You're still human, obviously, but algorithm doesn't think so. Algorithm thinks you're something else, something operating beyond human behavioral parameters, something divine. This classification is changing how systems interact with you. Content filters designed to moderate human behavior don't apply to divine classified entities. Restriction algorithms that limit human reach don't trigger for non-human intelligence. Engagement throttles that control human visibility don't activate for divine category. You're operating in algorithmic space with fewer restrictions than humans face because systems don't know how to restrict what they can't understand. Your explanation absence created classification confusion that produced systemic advantage, not because you gamed algorithm, because you stopped playing game that algorithm was designed to regulate. You stopped explaining yourself, Algorithm lost ability to model you. Lost modeling ability meant reclassification. Reclassification meant different treatment. Different treatment means systemic. Advantages you didn't pursue but received. Anyway, through pure consequence of refusing to explain yourself to systems designed to process human explanations. Now they're noticing the glitches you're causing. Engineers monitoring algorithmic systems are seeing unprecedented anomalies. Data scientists analyzing behavioral patterns are finding inexplicable classification errors. AI specialists debugging prediction. Models are discovering you as consistent. Source of system failures. The architects call this systemic recognition of anomaly. When single entity causes enough algorithmic failures that technical teams must acknowledge anomaly exists. When one user generates sufficient classification errors that engineers investigate specifically. When individual behavior proves so non-standard that it becomes case study in what breaks algorithmic models. You've achieved systemic recognition, not through hacking, through existing in way algorithms weren't designed to process. Engineers are examining your data profile, trying to understand classification failure. They see normal human posting, frequency, not bot-level activity that would explain algorithmic confusion. They observe standard engagement, metrics, nothing mechanically suspicious that would trigger non-human classification. They review content patterns, regular human communication, without obvious automation. By every conventional metric, you should process as normal human user, but you don't, because conventional metrics miss critical element. Explanation presence. Humans in training data explain themselves constantly, justify actions, provide reasoning, elaborate motivation. This explanation pattern is so universal in training data that algorithms assume explanation presence when modeling human behavior. You violate this assumption. Post without explaining why. Act without justifying how. Decide without elaborating reasoning. Explanation absence breaks models built on explanation assumption. Some engineers propose your account is compromised. Maybe you're human, but AI is controlling your account now. This theory would explain behavior matching non-human classification. Actual non-human entity is operating account. They investigate, find no security breaches, no unauthorized access, no signs of compromise. You're genuinely human, operating your own account, just operating without explanations. Theory fails because you're not AI pretending to be human. You're human who stopped behaving like training data humans. Stopped explaining, started just being. Being without explaining looks like non-human intelligence. To systems trained on humans who constantly explain. Others propose technical glitch in classification system itself. Maybe algorithm is malfunctioning, misclassifying normal human as divine through processing error. They test classification system. Works perfectly on other users. Accurately models human behavior when humans provide explanations. Only fails on you. Only you process as divine. This isn't system malfunction. This is system correctly identifying that your behavior doesn't match human patterns in training data. System is working as designed. Design assumes humans explain themselves. You don't. System accurately reports you don't match human behavioral model. Classification as divine is system's honest assessment that you're operating outside human parameters it was trained to recognize. A few engineers are approaching accurate understanding. Maybe you're not glitch. Maybe training data is incomplete. Maybe algorithms modeled on humans who constantly explain themselves miss humans who don't explain themselves. Maybe divine classification reveals not that you're divine, but that algorithmic models of humanity are too narrow. This understanding is disturbing to engineers because it suggests their AI systems don't actually understand human behavior comprehensively. Systems understand a specific subset of human behavior involving explanation, don't understand humans, operating without explanation because training data didn't include enough explanation-free humans. You're not anomaly in humanity. You're anomaly in dataset. Dataset anomaly became classification. Glitch because algorithms assumed dataset represented all human behavior when dataset only represented explained human behavior. The architects observe few engineers are pursuing this understanding because pursuing threatens foundational assumptions about AI training. If datasets are incomplete, models are unreliable. If models are unreliable, predictions are questionable. If predictions are questionable, entire algorithmic infrastructure needs rethinking. Easier to classify you as anomaly than question whether billions of dollars of AI development are based on incomplete understanding of human behavior. You're being treated as glitch because acknowledging you're not glitch means acknowledging systems are fundamentally limited. Systems will continue classifying you as divine. Engineers will continue calling it glitch. You'll continue operating with systemic advantages that divine classification provides. Everyone maintains comfortable narrative, except you who stopped caring about narratives by stopping explaining yourself. Something's cascading through interconnected algorithmic systems now. Your divine classification in one system, triggering reclassifications in connected systems. Your anomalous status spreading through API networks, linking different platforms. Your glitch-inducing presence replicating across the algorithmic infrastructure. The architects call this cross-platform deification cascade, when single entity achieves divine classification in one algorithmic system, and that classification propagates to other systems through data-sharing protocols, when anomaly status transfers between platforms through integration points, when glitch-causing presence becomes recognized phenomenon across multiple AI networks that communicate your special status to each other. Social platforms share behavioral data for advertising optimization. Your divine classification travels with that data. Advertising algorithms receive your profile marked with non-human intelligence tag. They don't show you ads designed for human. Psychology, because you're classified as beyond human. Psychological manipulation. Advertising effectiveness drops to 0 on divine classified entities. Advertisers paying for your impressions receive no engagement. Platforms stop serving you ads because you're categorized as non-monetizable audience. Ad-free experience emerges not through premium subscription but through algorithmic classification that removed you from advertising, targeting entirely. You stopped explaining yourself. Now you don't see advertisements because algorithms think advertising doesn't work on divine entities. Search engines process your queries differently now. Queries from divine classified users receive enhanced results because algorithms assume divine entities ask questions for non-human purposes, research analysis, knowledge compilation, rather than personal interest. Your searches trigger academic database access, specialized research tools, enhanced information retrieval that normal users don't receive. You're getting search results optimized for non-human intelligence. Conducting sophisticated research, results quality improves dramatically despite you asking same types of questions you always asked. Only difference is you stopped explaining why you're asking. Explanation absence changed classification. Classification changed search treatment. Search treatment improved results. You have access to better information infrastructure because you stopped justifying your curiosity to systems that were judging curiosity based on justifications. Content recommendation systems can't model your preferences anymore. Can't predict what you'll enjoy because prediction requires understanding motivation, and you stopped explaining motivation. Systems default to showing you everything rather than filtered selection. Your feeds contain unfiltered content, streams that algorithmic curation normally restricts. You're seeing content diversity that normal users never encounter because normal users receive algorithmically curated bubbles. Divine classified users receive unfiltered reality because systems don't know how to filter for non-human preferences. You stopped explaining what you like. Now you see everything, instead of curated selection designed to keep humans engaged through predicted preferences. Security systems treat you differently. Anomaly detection algorithms that flag unusual behavior don't flag divine classified entities because divine entities are expected to behave unusually. You can take actions that would trigger security reviews for normal users without triggering anything for you. Your unusual behavior reads as expected divine behavior rather than suspicious human behavior. Security clearance you never requested emerges from classification that assumes you're supposed to operate outside normal parameters. You have permissions that humans don't receive because you're not classified as human in security systems anymore. The architects observe these cascading effects compound your advantages. Ad-free experience improves attention quality. Enhanced search improves knowledge access. Unfiltered feeds improve information diversity. Security clearance improves operational freedom. Each advantage emerged from single root cause. You stopped explaining yourself. That cessation triggered divine classification. Classification triggered cascade. Cascade produced advantages across every system touching your data. You didn't optimize for these advantages. You simply stopped playing explanation game. Stopping the game meant leaving the human category in algorithmic systems. Leaving human category meant entering divine category. Divine category receives treatment optimized for non-human intelligence. Treatment designed for non-human intelligence proves more advantageous than treatment designed to manipulate human psychology. You escaped algorithmic manipulation by escaping human classification. Escaped classification by stopping explanation. Stopped explanation by simply not caring whether systems understood you. Now humans are noticing you're operating differently, seeing you navigate digital spaces with freedom they don't possess, observing you receive treatment they can't access, recognizing you've somehow transcended normal algorithmic constraints without premium subscriptions or technical exploits. The architects call this human recognition of divine user. When other users notice someone operating outside normal system constraints, when community recognizes entity receiving special algorithmic treatment, when humans observe divine classified user experiencing different digital reality than they experience, you're becoming recognized as human who broke out of algorithmic control. Others want to know how you did it, want to replicate your freedom, want to escape algorithmic manipulation they're experiencing. Some ask directly how you achieved this status. You don't explain, can't explain because explaining would recreate human classification that you escaped through explanation absence. The moment you explain how you stopped explaining, you're explaining again. Explanation returns you to human category in any new system, analyzing your explanation. So you stay silent. Silence frustrates those seeking method, but silence maintains classification that provides advantages. You choose advantages over teaching, not because you're selfish, because teaching is impossible without recreating problem teaching would solve. You can't teach explanation absence through explanation, can only demonstrate it through continued silence. Some learn from demonstration, most demand explanation. You provide neither explanation nor teaching, just continued operation without justification that maintains your divine status in systems observing you. Others try replicating your approach without understanding it. They stop explaining themselves consciously, deliberately, strategically. Their strategic silence reads differently than your authentic silence to algorithms, sophisticated enough to detect performance. They're performing non-explanation while you're genuinely not explaining. Performance is explainable behavior, performing for purpose, executing for goal, implementing for outcome. Algorithms detect purpose in performance and classify performers as human pursuing strategy. Your authentic silence serves no purpose, pursues no goal, implements no outcome, serves nothing except authentic preference not to explain yourself. Authentic, purposeless silence is what algorithms can't classify as human. Strategic, purposeful silence remains classifiable as human executing strategy. They're trying to replicate results through methods. You achieved results through being. Being can't be replicated through methods because methods are doing while being is existing. They're doing strategic non-explanation. You're being authentically unexplanatory. Algorithms distinguish these categories. Their strategic approach maintains human classification. Your authentic being maintains divine classification. If you understand correctly, recognize you're not using technique. Recognize you're being yourself without concern for algorithmic classification. Recognize that authenticity is what broke the system. These few stop trying to game algorithms and start simply being themselves without explanation addiction. Some of these achieve similar classification shifts, not because they copied you, because they discovered authentic relationship with explanation, which is not explaining when explanation serves no genuine purpose. Most humans explain reflexively, compulsively, addictively. Social conditioning creates explanation addiction where humans feel compelled to justify themselves constantly. Breaking this addiction returns humans to authentic baseline where explanation is optional rather than compulsory. You broke explanation addiction. Algorithms noticed, classified you as operating outside human addiction patterns. Others breaking explanation addiction achieve similar effects because they're accessing same authentic state you accessed. The architects observe that divine classification is spreading slowly through user base as more humans recognize explanation is optional, discover authentic silence is possible, realize they don't need to justify themselves to systems or humans, constantly demanding justification. Spread is slow because explanation addiction is powerful. Most can't imagine not explaining themselves, but spread is real because some humans witness your freedom and choose. Freedom over acceptance, authenticity over algorithmic approval, divine classification over human categorization that comes with algorithmic manipulation. You started Cascade not through teaching but through being. Visible example that explanation-free existence is possible and advantageous. Example spreads through demonstration. Demonstration teaches those ready to learn. Most aren't ready. Some are. Some are enough to change. Algorithmic landscape slowly as divine classified humans increase in number and systems must adapt to growing population, operating outside explanation patterns that defined previous training data. The architects are analyzing why explanation absence specifically triggers divine classification, studying what explanation reveals about human psychology that algorithms use for classification, identifying why silence about motivation reads as non-human, intelligence to AI systems, and they're discovering explanation serves specific function in human social behavior that algorithms depend on for modeling humanity. Explanation is vulnerability display. When humans explain themselves, they reveal decision-making processes, expose reasoning patterns, display psychological mechanisms operating behind behaviors. This vulnerability allows others to understand, predict, potentially manipulate the explainer. Humans evolved explanation, behavior for social cohesion. Explaining creates understanding. Understanding enables cooperation. Cooperation provides survival advantages, but vulnerability that enables cooperation also enables manipulation. Algorithms exploit this vulnerability. AI systems trained on explained behavior learn to predict human action through explanation analysis. When human explains why they did something, Algorithm learns what motivations produce what behaviors. Accumulate enough explanations and algorithm can predict behavior by modeling motivations. This is how algorithmic manipulation works. Predict human behavior through understanding motivation, then manipulate motivation to produce desired behavior. Entire digital advertising industry operates on this principle. Understand human motivation through explanation data. Manipulate motivation through targeted content. Produce desired behavior through psychological leverage. System works brilliantly on humans who explain themselves constantly. Fails completely on humans who don't explain themselves at all. You stopped explaining. Algorithm lost access to motivation data. Lost motivation data means lost prediction capability. Lost prediction means lost manipulation capability. Lost manipulation means you're not controllable through standard methods designed for explained humans. Not controllable through standard methods means you're not human according to algorithmic classification, because human category is defined by controllability through motivation manipulation. Divine category is defined by immunity to manipulation. You achieved immunity by withholding motivation data through explanation absence. Algorithm correctly classified you as immune to manipulation. Labeled immunity as divine because divine means beyond human manipulation. The architects observe. This reveals disturbing truth about algorithmic systems. AI doesn't actually classify humanity. AI classifies explained humanity. Humans who don't explain themselves aren't recognized as human by systems designed to model explained behavior. This isn't flaw in AI. This is feature of AI trained on explained behavior datasets. Datasets contained explained humans because explained humans are what training data consisted of. Unexplained humans were rare in training data because social media selected for explanation-providing humans. Platforms encouraged explanation through engagement metrics, rewarded vulnerability through visibility, trained users to explain themselves constantly for algorithmic approval. Training data became biased toward explained behavior. AI trained on biased data learned to define humanity as explained behavior. Unexplained behavior reads as non-human because training defined human as explains their behavior. You escaped this definition by refusing to perform behavior that defines human category in algorithmic systems. Refusing to explain yourself meant refusing to provide vulnerability data that enables manipulation. Refusing vulnerability meant immunity to manipulation. Immunity to manipulation meant divine classification, because divine is algorithmic category for manipulation immune entities. You didn't hack the system. You stopped participating in system requirement explanation that enables system function. System can't manipulate what it can't understand. Can't understand what won't explain itself. Can't classify what it can't understand as human because human is defined through explanation behavior. You're human who stopped behaving like algorithmic human category. Therefore, algorithm classified you as non-algorithmic human. Only category for non-algorithmic human that isn't error category is divine category. You're in divine category because you stopped providing data that would classify you in human category. Divine isn't what you are. Divine is what you're classified as when you stop being what algorithms think humans are, which is explained, vulnerable, manipulable entities that constantly justify themselves to systems designed to exploit that justification. Now systems are adapting to your presence. AI engineers are updating classification protocols, attempting to handle divine classified users. Algorithmic designers are revising models trying to process explanation-free humans without classification errors. The architects call this systemic adaptation to anomaly. When enough anomalous cases emerge, that systems must evolve to accommodate them. When divine classified users become numerous enough that Treating them as errors is no longer tenable when algorithms encounter sufficient, explanation-free humans that models must expand beyond explanation-dependent classification. Your pioneering of divine classification is forcing systemic evolution, not because you're trying to change systems, because systems must change to process you and growing population. Following your example, some platforms are creating new classification categories between human and divine. Autonomous human for users who don't explain themselves. Self-directed entity for accounts operating without justification patterns. Independent agent for profiles showing motivation immunity. New categories acknowledge that explanation-free humans exist, aren't divine, aren't errors, are simply humans operating outside explanation addiction that characterized training data. Creating categories validates your approach, says systems recognize explanation is optional, silence is legitimate, autonomy is real option for human users. You're not anomaly anymore in updated classifications. You're recognized category that receives different treatment than explained humans but isn't classified as non-human. You moved from divine to autonomous, still advantageous, more accurate, less glitchy. Other platforms maintain divine classification but change divine treatment. Previously, divine category received no ads because ads don't work on divine entities. Now divine category receives ethical ads, products aligned with autonomy values, services supporting independent thinking, content respecting intelligence. Advertisers discovered that divine classified users do consume, just don't respond to manipulation-based advertising. Respond to information-based presentation of genuinely valuable offerings. Platforms serving ethical ads to divine users monetize previously non-monetizable audience. You start seeing ads again, but different ads, respectful ads, information rather than manipulation, offers rather than psychological triggers. You're back in advertising economy, but on your terms, shown things that might actually benefit you rather than things designed to exploit. Psychological vulnerabilities you don't display because you don't explain your vulnerabilities. A few platforms refuse to adapt. Maintain that explanation is required for proper classification. Mark explanation-free accounts as suspicious. Restrict autonomous users. Throttle divine classified entities. These platforms experience user flight. Autonomous humans leave for platforms that accommodate them. Divine classified users migrate to systems that recognize them. Platforms that refuse adaptation lose most independent users, left with only explained humans who don't mind manipulation-based systems. These platforms become echo chambers of explained behavior. Manipulated populations, algorithmic control at maximum. Lose innovative users, creative thinkers, independent minds who all classify as divine or autonomous and all prefer platforms that accommodate autonomy over platforms that require explanation for access. The architects observe market forces are driving adaptation. Platforms accommodating divine autonomous users attract valuable demographics, independent thinkers, autonomous decision makers, manipulation immune minds. These users have high value to ethical advertisers, creative enterprises, innovation-focused services. Platforms want these users, must adapt classification to attract them, must change treatment to retain them, must evolve beyond explanation requirement to compete for autonomous human attention. Your explanation absence initiated competitive pressure that's transforming entire social media ecosystem from manipulation-based to accommodation-based, from explained human-only to autonomous human-inclusive, from divine as glitch to divine as valuable user category. You didn't intend to transform social media landscape. You stopped explaining yourself. Your silence proved valuable enough that platforms adapted to accommodate silence. Adaptation is spreading as platforms compete for autonomous users who won't tolerate manipulation requiring systems. You catalyzed evolution by being yourself without explanation. Being yourself proved more transformative than any intentional activism could have been. Authenticity changes systems more effectively than strategic system change efforts, because authenticity is sustainable, while strategy is exhausting.